And
Now
we are live.
hello,
Pot Feet. Let me get a
everybody.
better view of just us here. There we go.
There we go. Now it's time for roll
Now we're
call. All
talking.
right. We have Kevin and Bill and Jason and Mike and Jill and John and Rick and Sandy. And I was just about to say, where's Japan? And there's Michael Westbay coming in. And let's see, anybody in the sidebar there? Who we got? We got Jill. Did I say Jill right? Yeah, Jill's there twice. That's interesting. I don't see anybody else. I don't see any wheels. Oh, you changed shirts, Steve.
Yes, I was clashing with you.
Yes, they do. Actually, the interesting thing is those are actually supposed to be red, but they come through as orange.
The lights behind you?
Yeah, we're all about backlighting. Don't steal my joke. Actually,
Here it comes.
you should probably review these. This weekend we decided to watch TV. Our theme was movies where Matt Damon was left on a planet. Mm-hmm. And so let's see. Where is it? There it is. Okay, and so this was. Wait, come on. I want to copy the image. This was the first one. And this was the second one. There we go. So Steve got new backlighting for his TV for Christmas.
Yes.
All right, you need to stop talking to Terry because I can't make the notification stop.
Okay. Because you get them from Terry?
Well, I think it's because you're talking. I didn't get it when Terry responded, but when you respond to Terry, then I get it.
Okay.
I think my input needs to go up a smidge. Correct. And why do they keep leaving him on a planet? I mean, he must not be a very good guy. All right. I like the Martian shot, Steve.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, they left him in World War II also? Steve, stop texting. Seriously, I can't make it stop. Oh, and Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah. Did they leave him? Yeah, they did.
Oh, man, now I got to see Saving Private Ryan.
You've seen it. Oh, we got to see it again.
No, I got to see it all
a
tonight.
Triplet. Yes. Oh, that's a long one.
Yeah, we need to start now.
Let's do it.
All right, I think I should start the show. All right. Here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, January 8th, 2023, and this is show number 922, and my voice is almost completely back, and I'm hoping it lasts throughout the show. Speaking of that, we've only got one more show to do before Steve and I head off to Antarctica. While we're gone, Bart Bouchatz and Alistair Jenks will be in charge of the show, so we will not lose our streak of, coming up on 18 years. I really, truly need you to give them content. Now, if you're already certain you're going to be providing something, please let me know right away so that we know to count on it. We leave on the 17th of January, so you've pretty much got only 1 week from the day I'm recording this to get something into me so I can give it to them. I will not be very available, maybe a little bit available for the first week, like a text message here and there, but I won't be able to do anything in the second week. So please get those recordings in. This is a huge ask for them to do this favor for us, and I hope you'll make it easier for them. All right. Save. Jill, I think you said you were doing something, right? Was it Steam Deck? Hello, Dave. Dave Ginsburg's here.
I'm sorry, I can't.
We have it written and recorded.
Wow.
Did you send it to me already and I'm forgetting? Not edited or notes. Okay, good. Jill and I were having a really good time because it's really hard to say Steam Deck. So when she writes to me, she writes, no, wait, what is it? Steam Desk? Is that what it is? Anyway, she ends up writing Stream Desk when we're done. We kept getting all tangled. It was very funny. All right. Let's see. Copy that.
Dave
not
Ginsburg
even trying to make
joined us.
What's that?
Dave Ginsburg joined us. Hello, Dave.
That's why I said hi to him.
I thought you were talking to Hal.
Hal? Stream Deck, Stream Desk, Steam Desk. And
and StreamYard.
When I made fun of her, all she said was center stage manager. All right. Here we go. Let's see. What do I want? What am I looking for? I'm looking for chit chat.
7:57.
Yeah, you've got 2 articles to spam, Steve. You're getting behind.
No, I did them.
Okay. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
All done.
Here we go. In this week's episode of Programming by Stealth, Bart Bouchot starts building out one more tool in our toolbox, shell scripts. Bart starts with the basics, explaining how to tell our little scripts which shell to run using the shebang line, which is just fun to say. He talks about the structure of shell scripts, commenting, assigning and using variables, and how to write strings without having to escape every space and unusual character. Now, throughout the installment, Bart refers back to things we learned in Taming the Terminal, which was a podcast we did a long time ago. If you haven't listened to or read that series, you can download the book that Helma helped us to produce from all the content that we made using the Apple Bookstore. You can download that book, or you can access it in beautiful HTML. Both of these have the audio of the podcast embedded within, and you can find even more formats if you go to podfeed.com/TTTbook. But for now, you can... I don't like that. And of course, you can listen to this episode of Programming by Stealth, number 143, in your podcatcher of choice. You're disappointed. Yeah, ever since we started using StreamYard, it's been smoother. All right. Steve still doesn't like it as well, but I love it.
The transitions are not smooth, as you can tell. It's like a serial process instead of a direct process to get to the...
So you can't go from A to C. You have to go from A to B to C?
In some you can, in some you can't. Depends on what you want to do.
I wonder if he had a Stream Deck. Knock on wood. Or Formica, whatever this desk is made out of.
Yeah. John wanted sausage tonight. I don't blame you.
Sorry. All right. Here we go. My favorite tutorials to do for Screencasts Online are the ones for software that I've been using for a long time that solve real problems for me. This week, my tutorial on the awesome tool Under My Roof was published on Screencasts Online. Under My Roof is available from binary formations. The purpose of Under My Roof is to help you keep track of everything within your home. Now, it used to be called Home Inventory, but they expanded it to do so much more. Under My Roof helps you store information about your stuff, so you can store the make, model number, serial number, receipts, and other important information about your belongings. But you can keep track of warranty status for your items too, and store photos of your items, which is essential in fighting an insurance claim. Sadly, I found out about that one firsthand. Speaking of insurance, you can keep track of insurance policies and coverage information for your home in Under My Roof. You can keep track of mortgage or rental documents for your home and get notifications on regular maintenance needs. You can even organize home improvement projects in Under My Roof. If you're a collector, you'll find the features of Under My Roof an invaluable way to keep track of valuations and certificates of authenticity and to group your collections. When it comes time to move, Under My Roof even helps you by letting you record what you put in each box with photos, and when you arrive in your new home, you'll be able to find that spaghetti strainer you need on the first night. If you store a box away in a closet to be unpacked later, you can even record that. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of Under My Roof, and it was really fun to make this tutorial. I hope you'll check it out, the free 7-day trial of Screencast Online at screencastonline.com or by subscribing to the service. That was such a fun one to do. It's just so fun when everything just goes smoothly. Oh, Alistair's here.
Hello, Alistair.
Alistair, panhandle for articles. Jill has one. So we're in good shape on that.
Did I see Alistair was already editing in your on WordPress?
Oh yeah, he's already written 3 posts.
Wow, he's on it.
Yeah, he's Okay, I have a really stupid article. I probably should have just deleted the article, but I'm going to do it anyway.
You know, what, the next one?
Yeah,
The tiny tip?
yeah, it's really stupid. Because I'm going to act like we made fire, and then I'm going to admit that we didn't make fire at all. It's still fun. If you can't make fun of yourself, here it is. All right, I did a chapter mark. Right, Alistair. All right. A few times over the past couple of years, I've mentioned an app called Sizzy that Helma from the Netherlands recommended to me. Sizzy is a very slick tool for people who are developing websites and web apps. The main problem it solved for Helma and me is that it shows you what your web app or site will look like on a whole bunch of different platforms at once. You might make a site that looks great on your Mac, but squished onto an iPhone SE, it's not useful at all. Sizzy can show you the site on the SE and a Galaxy Tab and a portrait mode iPad and more. Helma discovered Sizzy in SetApp and turned me on to it. I kept meaning to do a review, but it was a pretty high-end tool and had so much more built-in capability that I didn't use or understand that I never did a review. Well, a few months ago, we discovered that Sizzy had been removed from SetApp, and we were both super sad. I looked into buying Sizzy, but it's a subscription model with the least expensive pricing being $12 a month. For how little I actually code, I simply couldn't justify the price. Now, if you do web development for a living, I highly recommend you check out Sizzy and see if it can help you in your work, because it does a ton of stuff I don't even understand. It just wasn't right for me, but I was sad to lose the responsive design mode that I used in Sizzy. This week, Helma discovered something wonderful. The lovely people at Mozilla have come out with a developer edition of Firefox that includes tools to view your sites and just the responsive design on a whole bunch of different platforms. Of course, since it's from Mozilla, it's free. I have a link in the show notes to the developer edition of Firefox, and from there you can navigate to the site you want to test. No, don't. With the Firefox Developer Edition, you can navigate to the site you want to test, and then in the toolbar on the right side is a wrench, and under that is an option for responsive design mode. Or you can use the keystroke option of Option Command M. Immediately, the layout of the website you've navigated to will change to reflect one of the screen sizes. Mine defaulted to an iPhone 11 Pro, but there's a default drop-down to show many more options. It looks like the list isn't super up-to-date because it maxes out on the iPhone 13 Pro. It includes the Galaxy Note 20, Galaxy 10, the 10 Plus, it's got Pixels, it's got Kindle Fires, it's full of options. Now at the bottom of the dropdown, it even has an option to edit this list, and from there, a grid of lots more devices. You can check and uncheck them to make your dropdown list show just the devices you'd like to see. If you don't see a device you really need in the grid, you could create it yourself with the Create Custom option. Now, you'll probably want to explore the new features to help you master the CSS grid, find inactive CSS, or work more quickly with their fonts panel and more. Now, I'm delighted that I have an easy way to get the one feature I used in Sizzy and for the glorious price of free. Now, a lot of you are probably saying something, and I'm going to tell you what you're saying. After I wrote up this glorious discovery, I tooted it out on nope. Now, after I wrote up this glorious discovery, I tooted it out on Mastodon and a bunch of other places. Scottish Wildcat tooted me back with this, quote, "You don't need the developer edition for this. As far as I know, it's available in all versions of Firefox. Chrome and Safari have very similar tools too." Couldn't believe it. So I jumped into regular Firefox, and sure enough, under the Tools menu in Browser Tools is Responsive Design Mode, which brings up the exact same thing I was so excited about in the Developer Edition of Firefox. Here and I thought the Helma and I had made fire. I feel silly, but I'd much rather feel silly now and not end up knowing that those tools were right there. Sandy, I forgot to fix that typo, and I just stumbled on it. Hang on. Then Sandy found that typo, and I'd rather feel silly. There you go. Okay, now I just got to remember to feel silly. I feel silly, but I'd much rather feel silly now than never know that the tools were right there. In Safari, you have to do a smidge more work I happen to have already done. Open Safari settings, preferences. Clumsy. We're right there. In Safari, you have to do a smidge more work. This was work I'd already done. Open Safari settings or preferences if you're on pre-Ventura or Mac OS. Select the Advanced tab, and at the bottom, you'll see a checkbox to show the Develop menu in the menu bar. Once you close settings or preferences, depending on the version you're on, for Safari, you'll now see the Develop menu between bookmarks and window. It's a very long menu with lots of cool stuff in it, but I think it's the 7th item down says Responsive Design Mode. It can also be triggered with Control-Command-R. You'll be rewarded with little icons for the major Apple products, but only up to the iPhone 8 Plus, so I guess Firefox isn't actually that far behind. Excuse me. Couldn't make it. One more sentence. 2 more. In typical Apple fashion, it doesn't include any Android tablets or phones, but it does have 3 screen resolutions you can test. Unlike Firefox, you can't rotate to landscape mode either, so Firefox is a lot better. It's sweet that Apple tried, but I'll be using regular Firefox for testing responsive design of my web apps and websites. I'm so glad that Scottish Wildcat corrected me, especially before I talked about it on the podcast. By the way, he also goes by Callum in many of the online forums for the podcast. I do need tequila. Might have to go back to bourbon. I drank bourbon last week. That did help. All right. Save and a chapter mark. Oh, click on it more than once? Are you sure? Hang on. Where is Safari? Just bring up a Safari window. Where's Safari? There you are. So you're saying if I do, what did I say? It was Control-Command-R. If you just click on them? Look, well, no. Click on the iPad Pro 12.9 and look at what happens to it. Actually, well, let me look on my own site. That was on somebody else's site. I know what mine looks like. I'll look at that. Oh, no, it's bad.
It's bad?
Oh, it goes through 3 iterations. So it's showing it landscape, and if I click it once, it shows it in this real tall, thin thing, and if I click it a third time, it goes into portrait mode. But it stops on its way through... Oh, is that split mode it's doing?
Is it like a triple toggle?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and add that.
You can do that now?
Yeah. Wait. This just in. This is the value of having the live show. When I said that Safari didn't let you switch to portrait mode, I was wrong. Alistair pointed out that if you click on the little icons for the iPad and the iPhone, whatever you're looking at, it actually switches to portrait mode, but it has 3 modes. It's got landscape, portrait, and then it's got a split mode. I'm not sure that split mode's really useful because I have it set up for the iPad Pro 12.9, and when I go into split mode, it's this really tall, thin, and that's not what it would look like on a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I don't think. But anyway, good to know. Actually, it was Bill who said that the third one was split mode because I was very confused about what that weird one looked like. So anyway, unjustly accused, you can look at landscape and portrait mode in Safari's developer tools in the responsive design mode. Okay, that better be the end of the corrections. Tired of this. Okay, now it's going to be a long one.
We've got layered corrections.
Yeah. Wonder if I'll remember to put it into the show notes. I will tell Helma, because she's the one who noticed that it didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Wait, 7 clicks on an iPad? Jeez, come on. 1. Wait, let me start. Oh, God, he's right. Oh, come on. I'm not correcting it. Is it okay if I don't correct it a third time?
Let it go.
Actually, no, it would be funny. I'm going to do it.
Allison.
No, it's too funny. I have to do it. Wait. This just in. Alistair just corrected me yet again. It turns out as you keep clicking on the iPads, it's cycling through all of the different split modes that an iPad can show you. So that's why it was real tall and skinny. He says that it's 7 total clicks to go through all of the different modes. I am done correcting myself. This is it. This wasn't that interesting of a story, but I couldn't resist telling you one more correction. Okay, that was good. That was funny. That's funny right there. All right. Okay, save and add chapter mark. Okay, I remembered to move it. Okay, everybody settle in. This is, how many words is this one? Wait a minute, something's wrong. This says it's 811 words.
Looks longer than that to me. You do have a lot of figures, but it's more than...
I thought this was super long.
It
Hang
is.
on just a second. No, but 811 words is like 10 minutes.
I know. Something is wrong.
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's 3344 words in Bear. Hopefully it's just counting wrong. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it looks long. The scroll bar is small.
You're talking about Mars Edit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do you want to scroll to make sure the whole thing's in there?
Yeah. This is the real thing. Okay. Right. I got to, tired of debugging things for developers. Okay. Alan, I said hi. Quit saying hi to me. Hi. Okay. Here we go. Mermaid diagrams won't replace diagrams.net as my diagramming tools of choice, but it's not plural. Mermaid diagrams won't replace diagrams.net as my diagramming tool of choice, but they're still pretty cool. I've been having a lot of fun lately with this tool called Mermaid for making diagrams. I've hesitated about whether to tell you about Mermaid diagram for 2 reasons. One reason for my hesitance is that they're a pretty nerdy way to make diagrams that's a lot harder than using my beloved drag-and-drop diagrams.net. The other reason is that Bart already taught us a bit about Mermaid in Programming by Stealth, installment 141. Now, Bart's instructions were how to make something called UML class diagrams in Mermaid, and these are made specifically for programming. We'll be using UML class diagrams in the project to port XKPassWD to a modern JavaScript version. His instructions did everything from the command line in the terminal, which is great for a programming audience, but I wanted to see if I could teach Mermaid diagrams in a way where normal people could do it. I've discovered there's a far less nerdy way to create Mermaid diagrams that I might talk you into trying, and an example of a type of diagram you might want to make, a simple flowchart. I first learned about Mermaid diagrams back when I reviewed the note-taking app Joplin a year or 2 ago. In my description about Mermaid diagrams, I said, I learned just enough to be impressed and amazed that Mermaid exists, and then practiced a little bit inside Joplin and learned that it was too nerdy even for me. Well, I pride myself on becoming nerdier every year, and after having Bart walk us through the UML class diagrams example, I got the itch to try them again, and they're simpler than I realized. Let's talk about why Mermaid is nerdy. Instead of dragging and dropping boxes and lines onto a canvas through a graphical user interface, you create diagrams using only a plain text file. For example, let's say we're drawing a flowchart, and you want a rectangular box with text in it. You just type the text between square brackets. If you want the box to have rounded corners, use round brackets instead. Want a line with an arrowhead between the 2 boxes? Simply type 2 dashes and a right angle bracket. That's not too hard, is it? Well, let's talk about what problem it solves to use Mermaid text files for diagramming instead of a graphical user interface. There are a couple of advantages that may or may not be compelling for you, but with any luck, you'll enjoy learning about them even if you never use them in anger yourself. Plain text files are easier to share between people who need to collaborate. If I create a nifty diagram in a GUI interface, I'll usually export it to an image file before I share it with someone. There's no way for you to collaborate with me and edit that graphic file. To collaborate, I'd have to convince you to get an account on the same service I'm using, and then the service would have to support sharing and version control, and it gets messy. Using a text file for collaboration means you and I can use any text editor we want and any file sharing service to do the collaboration. In Programming by Stealth, we've learned about using something called version control for our code. That lets people keep copies of the same code all over the place on their own machines and online with services like GitHub or Bitbucket. When one person changes the code, the changes can be pushed around to the other copies, and yet the changes are tracked. So if mistakes are made, or should I say when mistakes are made, they can actually be reversed. If I create a diagram in a text file, we can put it in version control and collaborate even more easily. Now, that's kind of nerd level stuff though, so let's get back to our mainstream needs. All right. Okay. If a mermaid diagram is well written, it could actually be an accessible form of the graphical image. A PNG image file embedded on a website would be pretty hard to describe fully in alt text. Having a link to the mermaid text file might be a good alternative. Finally, text files are way smaller than pretty much any other file type. The diagram I made for the Programming by Stealth project has 7 boxes on it. It has cute little icons in it. Some boxes are round, some are square, they're different colors. Now I have solid and dashed lines. The entire file is 1 kilobyte. Not joking, 1 whole kilobyte. Well, in Programming by Stealth, Bart taught us how to install Mermaid using something called Node.js, all from the command line. This adds a giant folder of modules to the folder where you create the diagrams. He taught us to create the text file for the diagram in any text editor, but then we had to run Mermaid from the command line. So we had to tell Mermaid where to put the input text file, what to call the output text or image file, and it takes a few seconds to run, and then we are able to double-click on the PNG to open it to see if it looks like what we're hoping for. All of this is perfectly normal in programming world. It works, but to be honest, it's a tedious process. I was delighted to find out that there are text editors out there that will allow you to create your diagrams and see them changing in real time as you're typing. Mermaid has a terrific user manual. It's at mermaid. Don't guess. Where is it? Is it at mermaid.org? Mermaid.com? Oh, mermaid.js.org. I won't say it. I will just do this. Mermaid has a terrific user manual, and one section is all about tools that have integrated Mermaid diagrams. There are pages and pages of tools, but I wanted to focus specifically on text editors. A few of the tools listed have native support for Mermaid, meaning you don't need to install any plugins or extensions. Apps we've mentioned on the NosillaCast before that include native support for Mermaid include Joplin, as I mentioned earlier, Notion, and Al's favorite, Obsidian. They all have free versions. There's also a website called Mermaid Live where you can create your masterpiece diagram and see it created automatically right in front of you. The Mermaid Live editor is a great place to learn the tool, but as my father would have said, it's ugly as sin. Pick any one of these tools and you can play along with this very basic introductory lesson on making Mermaid diagrams. Okay, enough about the tools. Let's get into the meat of how to write in Mermaid to create diagrams. The documentation on Mermaid, I've said it once, I'm going to keep saying it. It is superb. They start you out really slow and they just add on little tiny bits, more and more concepts to help you enhance your diagrams. So as an experiment here, let's build up a simple flowchart and see how far we can get. Let's make a diagram to explain the different shows at the Podfeet Podcast. We'll create a box at the top that says Podfeet Podcast, then 3 boxes below that for NosillaCast, Chit Chat Across the Pond, and Taming the Terminal. Below Chit Chat Across the Pond, we need 2 more boxes for Chit Chat Across the Pond Lite and Programming by Stealth. Once we get those basic blocks in place, we can start having some fun styling our diagrams. The first thing to type in your text editor is the type of diagram you want. Mermaid can create a lot of different diagram types, including flowcharts, Gantt, pie charts, mind maps, and more. We need to tell Mermaid we're going to create a flowchart, and we need to tell it whether we want to go left, right, or we want to go top down. Since we want ours top down, we simply type in our text editor, flowchart space TD for top down. All right, we want Podfeet Podcast in a square box, or I should say a rectangular box at the top, so we'll put Podfeet Podcast between square brackets. Now, every node you create in a diagram has to have an ID, but we can make that ID any name we want, and it can't have any spaces in it. I like short names because they're easier to type, so I'll call this first node PP. There's the added bonus that saying PP out loud makes me giggle because I have the maturity of a 7-year-old. Now we get to put the name PP, or we need to, I should say, put the name PP cuddled up against the node name in its brackets. So putting all this information together, we write PP, square bracket, Podfeed Podcast, close square bracket. That's not too bad, right? Now, as soon as I enter those two simple lines of text, the one that says flowchart TD and the one that says PP Podfeed Podcast, I am rewarded with a rectangular box that says Podfeed Podcast inside it. All right. That didn't hurt too much, did it? If I type NC square bracket NosillaCast on a new line, I get a second node in a square box. Or I gotta keep saying square. As a square angled, what do I want to call it? Just call it okay, too many times. Fix that. All right. That didn't hurt too much, did it? If I type NC square bracket NosillaCast square bracket on a new line, I get a second node, but it gets drawn side by side with the first Podfeed Podcast node. That's because I haven't yet told Mermaid about any relationship between the two nodes. So on the second line, before I type NC, I can put in a right angle bracket. Damn it. I thought I fixed that one. That stupid character encoding spec, Sandy. You dyed your hair. So on the second... Okay. I don't understand why that's there. We definitely fixed that. Ampersand GT. I think I'm getting problems with this. Getting an encoding problem. I'm trying to put dash dash. No. I outsmart myself sometimes. All right. Why is there a semicolon? I didn't tell it to put a semicolon. There we go. All right. That's because I haven't yet told Mermaid about... Okay. I always learn parentheses, brackets, brace, never... Okay. All right. On the second line, before it says NC, I can put dash dash angle bracket, and this instantly drops the NosillaCast down, and we have a lovely diagram of the Podfeed Podcast in a box with an arrow line going down to the NosillaCast in a box below it. Works perfectly. Now, think about that. I haven't hardly typed anything, and I've got this part of the diagram done. In literally 3 lines of text, we've drawn a diagram. And that felt really powerful to me when I did it the first time. Okay, so we have Podfeed Podcast above NosillaCast with an arrow going down, but we need 3 arrows going down to 3 boxes. Since all of these nodes should be below Podfeed Podcast, we type them on the same line as the NosillaCast node with an ampersand between them. So the text says arrow, NosillaCast, ampersand chit chat across the pond, ampersand taming the terminal. Now we see 3 podcasts in rectangular boxes below Podfeed Podcast with lovely arrows going to them. Now, it's starting to look pretty good, but the boxes are getting super wide because Mermaid doesn't automatically word wrap text, so it'll just keep growing wider and wider and wider the more you type into the box. We need to add some line breaks in our nodes. In HTML, the way you insert a line break is with the text BR between 2 angle brackets, and we can actually use that same syntax within Mermaid diagrams. With some well-placed breaks, the diagram looks much better now, but the text in Mermaid is definitely starting to look very messy.
So at some point, I see a few typos that I think you've been referring to.
What'd you see?
Well, the very thing, like I don't see the angle bracket. I see
you
the
see ampersand GT.
Yeah, and then I see a couple things down below. Maybe we talk about this later.
Yeah, scribble notes.
Okay.
Because I'm already editing.
All right, I won't edit.
Okay, very messy. Building it up piece by piece like this helps us to understand it, but at first glance, it kind of looks like a cat just walked across your keyboard. We're going to clean it up in a moment to make it more readable. For our final piece of content, we want to add Chit Chat Across the Pond Light and Programming by Stealth below Chit Chat Across the Pond with arrows going down to them. Now we could, if we hated ourselves, embed those last 2 blocks in the same line we just created with the NosillaCast and Chit Chat Across the Pond, but there's an easier way. Once you've created a node, you can just reference it again by its ID name, like NC, or TTT, for taming the terminal. In fact, as I was writing this up, I did some experiments, and I learned that we can make everything look much simpler. Think of each node as a variable you've assigned. The variable name NC has the value of NosillaCast. The variable of CCATPL has the value of Chit Chat Across the Pond Light. Jeez, I just found a typo. CCATL. I forgot the P, but I said it correctly. No, cancel. I didn't say to do that. I probably did, but that's not what I meant. Okay. Okay. We could define each of these variable nodes on their own simple looking line with no information about the relationship, so it's not going to look so messy. Then later in the file, we can rewrite the relationships using only those variable names, and it's going to look much cleaner. So I created a set of node definitions that just says PP, square bracket, Podfeed Podcast. Next line says NC, square bracket, NosillaCast. I did all of them all in a row. Now the beginning relationships are easy and clean to read. So I can write, oh my God, I can't even read this. It's so messed up. Ah! What does it look like garbage on the web? Wait a minute. Oh, because the graphic looks okay. All right. I'm going to read it from the graphic. So I can write PP on one line, and on the next line, I put my arrow symbol, and I can write NC, ampersand CCATP, ampersand TTT, and I keep going through the diagram. Now, it's a lot easier to read, and it looks like way fewer cat steps went on that keyboard. If you look at the, I've got a lot of screenshots in the show notes, and if you look at these, I hope you'll experience the joy I felt as I learned about more how to do this. And I think that's why it's so fun. The discovery of what I could do with this was really cool. So we now have our full relationship diagram created in just a few lines of text. But to be honest, it's kind of boring. We can add some styling to the boxes for our nodes. To each individual node, we could add text to define the text color, the fill color, and more, but there's a cleaner way of doing it on every node. We can define classes with that information and then add the class names to all of the nodes that we need to have that change to those colors. The way you define a class is with the word classDef, followed by the name you choose for the class definition and then the colors. So let's define a class called top, and we'll make the text white with the fill color red. We write classDef, top, color colon white, comma, fill colon red. Very simple. Then we assign the class top to our top node PP by writing class PP top. I know this is starting to get a little tangled probably if you're hearing it, but again, good graphics in the show notes and all the text is there too. But basically all I did was define a class and then assign that class to one of the boxes. So those two lines can sit anywhere in your diagram of text that you like. I prefer them at the bottom. The advantage of assigning classes isn't obvious when you only have one node with the class, like top. But now that we know how to create and assign classes, we can assign the same color and fill to the rest of the nodes. I added one more class called Podcasts and declared that they should all be color white, the text color, and filled with blue. I could then add the class to multiple nodes in one line by typing class, followed by each node name separated by comma, and then the name of the class def. So now my text file has three sections, a listing of all the variable names for each node, 3 lines that create the diagram with the arrows, and the section that defines the classes and assigns those attributes to the nodes. My diagram now has Podfeed Podcast in red with white letters at the top, and all of the other nodes are blue with white text. It's rather pretty now. Now, I was pretty happy with the diagram, but I'd like to have a way to maybe make the propeller beanie shows, Taming the Terminal and Programming by Stealth, have a different shape. I mentioned at the beginning that putting the text of the node inside square brackets makes sharp-cornered rectangles, and round brackets made them rounded rectangles. Turns out there's a lot more shapes you can easily designate by changing those brackets. Now, I don't bother remembering how to do fancy things like this in Mermaid because I can always refer to that terrific user manual for Mermaid. In the left sidebar, you can see different types of diagrams you can make, and if you select Flowchart, now the right sidebar shows you the different sections. I open this as a reference, so now I can select node shapes to find a better shape. I wanted to find a shape that looked nerdy, so I could assign it to Taming the Terminal and Programming by Stealth. One of the options is called a subroutine box, which is just a rectangle with an extra vertical line on the right and left. You make those with double square brackets around your node. That was a little bit nerdy. But ooh, how about a box that has kind of pointy edges on either side like an elongated hexagon? They call this a code box, and you make that using 2 squirrely brackets on either side of your node. I think green would be a nice color for them. I created another class called Nerds, and I assigned it to the Taming the Terminal and Podfeed and the Programming by Stealth podcast. Instantly, I had green nerdy boxes for the 2 nerd podcasts. Now, one thing that can make your node stand out even more is to add font awesome icons. While this is possible, the developer of the app or service you're using to create your mermaid diagrams has to enable it. And Mermaid only supports Font Awesome 4 and 5, not version 6. Creating mermaid diagrams from the command line does let you put the cute little Font Awesome icons in it, but none of the easy-to-use text editors I tested support it, so sadly we'll have to abandon it for this lesson. Now, there's a lot more you can do with mermaid diagrams, but let's just do one more fun thing. Let's change the way the arrowed line looks that goes to our 2 nerd podcast nodes. We've been using the syntax -- angle bracket to designate a line with an arrowhead. We can make that a dotted line if we just stick a dot between the 2 dashes instead. So it's -- angle bracket. Now, we have to rearrange relationship lines a smidge to get the dotted line to go just from PP to TTT, and that makes the text a tad longer, but it was still super readable. We can make the line designation even more interesting by adding some text to the dotted lines for the nerd podcasts. Instead of -- angle bracket, we can interrupt that by putting text between 2 dots. So I put in --nerds. And then the angle bracket. Well, this was looking snazzy, but I wasn't happy with how the lines curved on my diagram by default. I found a section in the manual on styling line curves. Well, I got a warning here. This is going to look like the nerdiest part of your diagram, and I don't even understand all of the syntax. But to change the default styling of your lines in Mermaid, you put an initialization line at the top in which you can describe the default curve shape. I tried out the different options from the manual, and a linear shape looked best to me. Instead of wide, swoopy curves, the diagram now has diagonal lines that sharply turn downward, and the word nerd sits nicely at the corner. Now, I had to stop here because I could keep tweaking this diagram all day and learning more and more cool things I could do with Mermaid. My final masterpiece is a grand total of 26 lines, and it's actually human readable. Now, you can do a whole lot more with Mermaid than I've described here, but as I said, I had to stop. Hopefully what I've explained tickles your interest to go play with it and see what it can do to help you make fun, interesting diagrams in plain text. And I'm not finished. I'm just stopping to take a water break. Save. I did. Thank you, Kevin. Well, I tried to get off easy and just wrap up this article thinking you might not notice I didn't tell you what you can actually do with a mermaid diagram after you create it. But it bothered me that I didn't know the answer to that question myself. You can see your pretty diagrams in your text editor of choice, but how do you share it with someone else? Ideally, I'd like to be able to send someone a PNG image file. Well, if you're a nerd, there's a lot of great options. Both GitLab and GitHub have integrated mermaid diagrams into their services. This makes a lot of sense because I explained having version control on plain text files is the whole reason for being for these services. Version control in image files isn't as practical because you have to keep recreating and replacing the images. Instead, or since mermaid diagrams are just text files, they're purpose-built to work with Git. But the whole point of this article was to teach the less nerdery amongst us how to make mermaid diagrams. So we need a simpler, muggle-level way to actually publish a graphic image of a mermaid diagram. The obvious solution is to simply export the graphic image from one of the text editor tools I mentioned. Or so you would think. Let's talk through a few of the options I tried. Now, Obsidian, Al's favorite, is a bit weird for my taste. It has this concept of vaults, and I actually ended up in a condition where I couldn't open any of my files. But when it was in a good mood, it worked well to create mermaid diagrams and view them graphically. While Obsidian won't let you export as a PNG, it will let you export to PDF. If you open the PDF in Preview, you can then save it as a PNG. From there, you can then crop the giant white canvas Obsidian gives you in the PDF down to just the diagram. Now, while that's an annoying two-step process, the good news is that the resolution is really good, so you can expand it to be pretty big. The one I created came out 1472 by 945 pixels, and it looked beautiful. Notion worked well, too, to create mermaid diagrams and even has a specific integration for them. But for the life of me, I could not find any way whatsoever to export the image file in any format at all. If anyone can figure out how the heck to get mermaid diagrams out of Notion, I'm all ears. Now, Notion is marketed as a collaboration tool, so maybe mermaid diagrams captive inside the tool could still be useful for teams. I prefer tools that let you import and export data. Now, Joplin, like Obsidian, allows you to export PDFs, so we have to do the same dance to save as a PNG and then crop a giant white canvas down to that image. Again, the good news is that the resulting image was pretty high resolution, so this method does work. Still weird not just to be able to export an image file, but that workaround does give the desired image size. Now, nerds use a tool called VS Code, or Visual Studio Code, written by Microsoft, and it actually works quite well for creating mermaid diagrams, and it's free. And you can use it even if you're not a self-proclaimed nerd. That is, if you install a plugin for visualization. The one I was using that nicely rendered my markdown text worked perfectly. Guess what? I couldn't figure out how to export from VS Code. I tested a few more plugins that were supposed to allow the user to export the graphic, but I couldn't get them to work. Even worse, they disabled the markdown rendering plugin I was using originally. I ended up messing all my plugins up, and luckily I opened it a few days later and it was all fixed again, so I'm afraid to touch that again. So VS Code export was not successful. And now for a diversion that will eventually answer the question of how you can easily export mermaid diagrams to a PNG. As I was fussing around with all of this, I posted a question on Mastodon, I tooted it, and I asked, what do people actually do with mermaid diagrams if you can't export them anywhere? And it resulted in a fun new friendship with a gentleman named Ed Ross. I'll make it. I'm going to make it. Ed and I exchanged around 20 messages about Mermaid, and we did a whole bunch of experiments together. The funny part is that Ed had never seen a mermaid diagram before, but before we started talking, but he quickly descended into my madness with me. He learned them on the fly as we were chatting, and he ended up down a whole new path. Now, Ed decided to try to use ChatGPT to create mermaid diagrams. I know, this doesn't have anything to do with how to export them, but it was so much fun. In case you don't know about it, ChatGPT is an OpenAI tool that allows you to ask questions in text, and using its data set from scraping all openly accessible data on the web, it develops an answer. ChatGPT is often wrong because humans are often wrong, and humans have written the content in its data set. But ChatGPT can be a useful tool if you know how to vet the information it provides you. For example, Ed asked it to create a mermaid diagram to show the relationships of the Simpsons family. Of course he did. And it created a correct representation. Now, I tried to replicate Ed's experiment, but the output from my ChatGPT query returned the wrong syntax for the mermaid diagram. It used 2 dashes instead of 3 to draw the lines, so the diagram basically just threw an error until I fixed it. Now, my second attempt was to ask ChatGPT to create a mermaid diagram demonstrating the relationship between the 3 branches of the U.S. government. Not only was the diagram correct, but the paragraph of text that came along with it was also correct. Like I said, it's very important to vet what you get out of ChatGPT. So anyway, while Ed and I had fun playing with ChatGPT and making mermaid diagrams, Ed suggested I go back and give the Mermaid Live editor another try. Now, you may remember at the start of this article I said I tried it, but it was ugly as sin. I had also tried to get it to export an image file, but it didn't work when I tried it. On Ed's advice, I switched from Safari to Microsoft Edge, which is a Chromium browser, and then the export function did work to save a PNG. I could have sworn I tried that, but the evidence does not support me. Anyway, you'd think I would declare victory at this point because I did technically get a PNG on export out of the Live Mermaid editor, but it was wee tiny and barely readable. It was super fuzzy. It was terrible. Mermaid Live Editor does provide a scaling option for PNGs where you can set it to a specific width or height, but it does not work intelligently at all. I changed the width to 2,000 pixels wide, but instead of enlarging the PNG, it enlarged the white canvas background, effectively shrinking the PNG even smaller. I was really feeling like mermaid diagrams were just mocking me at this point. I mean, how does anyone export a PNG in one darn step from anything? Well, Ed didn't give up on me, and he suggested I try the SVG export option from the Mermaid Live editor. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic, which is an ideal format because if you get one of these, you can scale vectors to any size you like. You do have to use a vector editor and then save it to a PNG, but it could give you the best image quality possible. I tried the SVG export button in the Mermaid Live editor, and then I tried to open the file in Affinity Designer, my favorite vector editor. The resulting graphic was a bunch of solid black boxes. They were the right shapes and the right sizes, but they were solid black. I opened up the little thing that shows you all the layers, and everything was black. I was baffled by this. Thinking it was some misunderstanding between standards for SVG definitions, I tried opening it in the very good and free Vectornator application, but again, I got the same black boxes. By this time, any sane person would have given up, but I'm like a dog with a bone when I could see a solution just outside of my grasp. There had to be a good way to export mermaid diagrams as high-quality PNGs. I posted the problem in Slack, and Alistair Jenks had a very interesting idea. He suggested maybe the SVG was actually okay. He suggested as a test that I just drag the SVG into my browser window. He said if the file wasn't damaged in some way, the browser should open the graphic. You can't double-click and open in it, by the way. You have to drag it. Sure enough, the diagram opened in all of its glory right there in my browser. I used Command+ to increase the size of the graphic, and then I just took a darn screenshot of the browser window. Wasn't elegant, but for a relatively small and uncomplicated diagram, it finally worked. I said at the beginning that mermaid diagrams won't take the place of my beloved diagrams.net. Then I discovered that diagrams.net has support for mermaid diagrams. It's not hard to make them in diagrams.net, but it's not at all obvious how to do it. Under the Arrange menu, you'll find an option to insert, and at the bottom of the menu, you'll see an Advanced menu. And in that menu, you'll find Mermaid. It's only one click to get there, but I'm sure I'll have to look it up every time I want to do it. This opens a little text field, and I mean little, it's not very big to work in, where you can type or paste your code. When you hit OK, you'll see your lovely diagram. To edit the diagram, simply double-click on the image in diagrams.net, and you get the text box where you can change the text, and when you hit Apply, you'll see your changes. Text box is pretty small, like I said, so I'm not sure I'd want to do my initial creation of a mermaid diagram in diagrams.net, but it does work for small edits. Now, there's a huge advantage to rendering your mermaid diagrams in diagrams.net. They're vector-based diagrams. That means when you choose File, Export, and choose PNG, you can type in a scaling factor, and the PNG is actually scaled perfectly. Finally, I have come full circle from my favorite diagramming tool to my favorite diagramming tool. Not only that, I started thinking, diagrams.net's file format is XML, which is, what? A plain text format. So the mermaid diagrams I create within diagrams.net can be put in version control. But then that got me to thinking, if all diagrams.net files are in text-based XML format, couldn't I create my diagrams with the native tools and use Git to do version control on them? Well, that's a thought for another day. The bottom line is that I was hoping to show you how fun it is to make diagrams using Mermaid, and that even for the non-super geeks, it can be fun and pretty easy. I'm pretty sure that in the end, by giving you 12 different ways to not successfully export the diagrams, I may have turned you off from the whole idea. But maybe you can find one of those ways that brings you joy.
Ooh, that was more than 800
Yeah,
words.
that wasn't 814 words. Oh, it's down to 500 now. They're disappearing. Anyway, isn't that cool?
That is really cool, yeah.
Oh, and SVGs are XML-based, but you can't really edit them.
Huh.
Right? It would, I mean, if you used a vector editor, you'd be recreating the file. I don't think it would probably be great for version control. Like if I just changed one box and you changed a different box, it would just be a merge conflict, I think, wouldn't it, Mike? Anyway. Wow, that was a 40-minute show, and guess what we've got? We've got an hour and 9-minute
security bits.
Yeah, the problem is I couldn't break this up, right?
Yeah.
I should have done export the next week. That's what I really should have done. That would have been funny. Okay. Pledge break. I miss Frank.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be back here soon. I think he's doing a little better. You can edit them. You edit them with a text editor all the time? Oh, man. I'm not doing addendums to this one. All right. Pledge break, here we come. Way back in December, Russ Sherman became our newest Patreon subscriber, and I totally forgot to thank him and mention it. I feel terrible I didn't immediately sing his virtues after he made the decision to help support the shows we do here at the Podfeed Podcast. He went to podfeed.com/Patreon, and he committed a dollar amount that was right for him and his family, and also showed his appreciation for the content we provide. Also, the delightful Klaus Wolf went to podfeed.com/PayPal, and he made a one-time donation to help the show. He is an equally fine human being, and I celebrate his virtues as well. Now I'm going to fix the spelling of his name. There is no E at the end of Klaus. I was sitting there debating whether there was an E after the F in Wolf, and I messed it up. Yeah. Wolfie. Oh, that reminds me of...
Amadeus.
Yeah. Wolfie. Okay. Now we need some security bits. Bart, that security bits was really fun. I was really depressed. I'm very sad about the LastPass debacle.
Yeah.
I don't take any joy in, being on 1Password. I just feel for everybody who's going to get stuck here. Okay, let's see. Line you up right there. And let's get rid of this one. You want to hear a plink?
You bet.
All right. Let's see. Listen close. It's quick. Blink.
Oh, yes. Short and sweet.
I wish you could have heard all the time if it took him to find the plink button. But he hadn't plinked yet, so it wasn't recorded.
The plink? He has a pre-recorded plink?
Well, no, he's got to push a button. The reason he's saying plink is so that I know he has started recording. That's the purpose of it, right?
I assumed it was for alignment, audio alignment.
No, it's so that I know he has started recording.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what it was for.
That's funny. I guess I've never said it. Uh-oh. Chapter mark as well. Who's opening my door? Uh-oh.
Cat.
That's not good. Yeah. Chapter mark.
Better hurry before the cat gets there.
Yeah, exactly. Here she is. I have heard of Bitwarden. I don't know whether it's worthy or not. I have not heard any bad things about it. Are you a Bitwarden user? Okay. I don't really need some cat right now. Can you guys see her?
Pieces of her. Occasionally. There's an ear.
Okay. Let me get this alignment, and let's see how this sounds. Oh, I got a long ways to go on that. Like right there. Let's hear how this sounds. Rate his virtues as well. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Security Bits with Bart Busschots, and we're going to be eating some vegetables today, it looks like, huh, Bart?
Well, on the one hand, there's 3 deep dives. On the other hand, there's very, very little else. So yeah, I think that's kind of what you like, actually.
All right. That alignment looks good.
I think
5:58. I got to hurry up and finish.
You got the chapter mark in there, as I recall.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Can you see me standing behind her? What? All right.
Stay patched so you stay secure.
There we go. All right. All right. Well, that is going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeed.com anytime you like? And you know when you would like? You would like to send in recordings for Bart and Alistair and hopefully some text to go along with that so we can do a blog post. Not required, but a lot of people do appreciate that. Anyway, you can do that for the next week or so, and then it's going to be really hard to get through to me. So hopefully you won't send anything while I'm gone. Let's see. You can follow me on Twitter at Podfeet. You can find me on Mastodon at Podfeet at chaos.social. If you want to join in the fun of the conversation, get answers to your questions like the way Alistair answered me when I was asking about what to do with that SVG, you should join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack. You can talk to me and all the other lovely NosillaCast ways. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You can support the shows like Russ Sherman did at podfeet.com/Patreon or with a one-time donation like Klaus Wolf did at podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, there will be one more live show before we leave. There will be one on January 15th. There will not be one for 2 weeks after that. You go to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.
Not bad for a 2-hour show.
Not bad. Yeah, hour 47. That is a long show.
Let me check that.
All right. Probably time for a chapter count, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. 1, 2,
Is that enough?
3, 4, 5 plus support the show. Yes.
And my voice made it.
With about a full glass of water. Yes.
Yeah. Just barely. I was rationing. You guys have been chatty tonight. 213 new messages since 5:02.
Yes, they have. It's good to see you all back in the new year.
Oh,
Actually,
good thing I bought new credits for Phonic. Sorry. Yes. Glad. Happy New Year, everybody.
I guess we did. The
We did
first
Happy
show
New
was
Year
on
last.
January 1st, but this feels like more of a new year.
Yeah.
It was too soon. Finally feels like 2023.
Right. Well, I think I'm getting ready to, let's see, I've exported the show. Going to start uploading it. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Nothing left but the tearful goodbyes.
Yeah.
Goodbye, your digital family, Kevin. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Everybody buckle down, get those recordings done. Anybody going to do a recording other than Jill? We know Jill's going to come through. She always comes through. She's the best. Anyway, goodbye.
Yeah, Gracie.
Rose isn't here, but I'll say goodbye.
All right, I'm going to end this thing.
End this thing. Put a line under it.